Unfortunately, our world is full of war. There are many times for people around the world where they have to run to a bomb shelter. It is true for me as a person in Israel. It is true for people in Ukraine. It is true for people in many other parts of the world. This video is not about any particular war, but rather a way of dealing with war. And as I have discovered through my experience, the best way of dealing with war is humor. Therefore, the humor in this video is going to be rather dark. And if this makes you a bit uncomfortable, then this may not be for you. In any case, this is my tier list of music for war. One thing that's important to stress from the outset: this video is based on my experience of war. It is not based on anything else, okay? And this takes into consideration my time of going to the bomb shelter and my infrastructure that is available for me during war. For many other people, it's obviously different, okay? This assumes that you have internet connection. It assumes that you have time to go to the bomb shelter and to put on a headset and listen to the music, because the air raid siren always poses a big challenge to hearing music during war. So we must obviously understand that this is my ranking, and your very well may differ, and I will be very curious to hear your ranking in the comments. Now, we begin under completely random order. I have the German composer. Many of you may not be familiar with him. His name is Karl Orff, or Orff, or something like that. He is the man who composed Carmina Burana, which is obviously one of the best war music ever composed. It is dramatic, it is exciting, and it's full of flame and energy. And the question is this what you're looking for during war? For me, the answer is absolutely yes. So I'm going to rank him as an A tier. But again, this is just based on one work. He's obviously not an A tier composer, because he's only really known for one work. This is strictly for war. Remember that, okay? Now, the next one we have is none other than Claude Debussy, the famous French Impressionist composer. Now, obviously, Debussy's music is nothing as exciting as Carmina Burana. Everybody knows that. It is relaxing, almost ethereal sort of music, mostly known for his piano solo works. I am not a very big fan of Debussy. Only recently I've started to listen to some of his orchestral work, but I can undoubtedly say that he's one of the worst war composers. Therefore, Debussy receives the D list. Now, we have a very interesting example from the other end of Europe, Johann Strauss II, who of course is the composer of the Viennese Waltz. Now, do you waltz in war? The answer is absolutely not. Therefore, it gets the D tier as well. Now, we have a very exciting contender, none other than Giuseppe Verdi, of course, with the famous Dies Irae from his Requiem. I mean, what more war music is there than that? Now, it is also important for me to stress that you may very well prefer music that is more like a farewell from this life, a music that is more about accepting the fact that this may be your death. That is a very understandable position. However, I, myself, am the kind of person who really prefers to go to death. On a high note, I prefer to go with a blast, as I will certainly go when the ballistic missile will hit me, in the unlikely event that it does, that it will resemble very well Verdi's Dies Irae from his Requiem. Therefore, he receives the first S tier. The next contender of war composers is none other than Richard Wagner, a very controversial composer, especially in my country. I myself have not really gone into his music very deeply yet, but of course I am very well familiar with the beautiful passages, particularly from Tristan and Isolde, which is very beautiful music about love and yearning and all the sort of stuff that you might feel perhaps about your loved ones that you're not with during the time in the bomb shelter, during the time which you are fearing for your life. This very well captures this great tension, this great yearning for the life you should have had before you were attacked by a missile from Iran. So I can definitely see Wagner works, I can definitely see how Wagner may work as a war composer, but I really couldn't care much for that, frankly. So I'm gonna put him as a CT, not a DT, because I can see particular circumstances that it very well will be the case, but I just see it not very exciting, is it? Now we have none other than Sergei Rachmaninoff. Of course, one of the greatest piano composers ever. He's actually the person who got me into classical music. The second piano concerto is a favorite forever and ever. The question is, are these lush, beautiful, emotional, romantic melodies fit for my last moments on this earth, full of the anticipation for the eventual obliteration? It can be. Like, if we had to take a certain example, if we want to, perhaps if we feel a bit anxious because of the impending doom, or rather if we feel that we just want something a little bit of the distraction, I can definitely recommend the third piano concerto, or particularly the last movement of it, or the second piano concerto. Definitely can be very good. So I will do a rather controversial move and rank Rachmaninoff B. As you can see in the picture behind me, I am a little bit of a fanatic of the next composer, none other than Gustav Mahler. Gustav Mahler is my personal favorite war composer. I have very fond memories rushing to the bomb shelter at 3 a.m. With the Sixth Symphony in my ears. That always gave me solace. You can feel the march of hell. You can feel doom coming in. You can feel the hammers of fate striking you, much like war. Therefore, Mahler gets the S tier next to Verdi. Now we have Tchaikovsky. Tchaikovsky is another Russian composer like Rachmaninoff, the second one today. He is fantastic, beautiful, romantic, moving, emotional, very powerful music. The Fifth Symphony, the Fourth Symphony. But if I'm really to bring the best symphony for war from Tchaikovsky, it'll be the Sixth Symphony, which has this very exciting third movement, which you think is a triumph, but it actually ends in despair in the finale with that dreadful, so powerful, so sad and despair cry at the end as the music disintegrates in the most glorious, quiet ending perhaps in the entire symphonic repertoire. However, this is certainly not an S tier composer, so for war that is, so I'm going to rank him at an A, but Tchaikovsky is a very strong entry here. Another Russian, Shostakovich, Dmitri Shostakovich. Well, Dmitri Shostakovich is indeed a very good war composer. He indeed composed many wars. He was a composer during war. The Leningrad Symphony, the Seventh Symphony of his, was literally composed under siege in the city of Leningrad, now St. Petersburg. He has lived through war. He has had a war in his own life when he was scared of being purged by Stalin. All these stories that I like to tell you in these various videos about Shostakovich. He even composed a massacre and another, I think it was the 11th Symphony, and also the Babi Yar, the 13th Symphony, which all depict horrors and very, very tragic events. Perhaps for me, the best war symphony is the fourth, actually, which is this incredibly powerful journey from darkness to darkness, essentially. There's almost no happy bits there. It's remarkably dark. Very, very powerful music. So I certainly, although I must admit, I've never listened to Shostakovich while in the bombshell, but this video now gives me the idea. So next time, I will make sure to put a bit of Shostakovich 4. So I have to give Shostakovich an S tier for war. From the other end, we have Johann Sibelius. Sibelius is a great Finnish composer, one of the most unique composers in the whole repertoire. I mean, his music is remarkably unique, beautiful melodies. You can think of the Sixth Symphony, is one of the most beautiful symphonies, actually. If you haven't quite heard Sibelius 6, go listen to it, it's glorious. Also the Fifth and the Seventh, of course, but everybody is more fond of the second, I suppose, with one of the most beautiful endings, most romantic, lush and beautiful endings of any symphony. So he's a really, really great composer. Now for war, I don't think he's really a good fit, frankly. I don't think Sibelius really gives me that sense of existential dread and fear and angst and all of that. These are not quite Sibelius attribute. His was more austere, more relaxed, more northern European, more as I don't think Finland is considered Scandinavian, but it was a Finnish, you know, more relaxed with a nice landscape of white. So I will give him a, it's hard to give him a D, but I'm going to give him a D tier for war composers. Next we have Dvořák, Anton Dvořák. Of course, one of the best composers of the... What do I mean best composers? For war! He's a great war composer. We can think of course, from the New World, the Ninth Symphony. It is like an action movie. Well, it has indeed inspired John Williams in his film score, so it definitely can be a really good fit. Do I feel a sense of existential dread? I mean, param tam tam param. Yeah, I can get that. So I will give Dvořák an A tier here still, because there's not enough of offering here. I think I would only rank really the Ninth Symphony, but if you have more Dvořák suggestions, do let me know. I would love to hear more of his war-relevant work. Now the last three, I think we can go through them rather quickly. Next one we have Ravel, Maurice Ravel, another great French composer. Also from the Impressionist style, very colorful, very interesting orchestration, very beautiful parts. Is it war? No. I'm sorry, it is not war. Ravel is absolutely not war. I cannot think of a single Ravel war. I guess Bolero, with that remarkably dull, endless march and that singular theme, is a little bit like feel it being inside war. So actually, you know, I'll give him a C tier for Bolero. Is actually good for war. It captures the psychological state of being in this sense of you have to mechanistically keep going, but it doesn't go anywhere. So actually, it's a very good word for war, but I would not hear it in a bomb shelter. The last two are, well, two of the greatest, if not the greatest ever composers. Of course, it's Mozart and Beethoven. They can be good. I mean, Mozart much less than Beethoven, but let's start with Mozart. Let's say for war, we can think of the Requiem. I mean, also great, Lacrimosa. It is about... you know, overcoming war. It's about the great, what comes after the dark DS era. So I like that. Would I listen to it in a bomb shelter? Absolutely not. So I'm going to put it as a B tier. And Beethoven, I just came yesterday from a beautiful performance of Beethoven 7th. It's a remarkably powerful work. A lot of his work is actually about struggle. It's about conflict, it's about overcoming hardships. The third eroica, for example, or the fifth, that is great for war. I'm going to still, I guess, put him a little bit higher than Mozart, but it's definitely not at the S tier for war. So we have A. That's it. Those are my. This is my list. So we have on the S tier Verdi, Mahler, Shostakovich. I think is a very good selection, actually, if you're asking me. On the A tier we have Karl Orff, I think, and then Tchaikovsky, Dvořák, Beethoven. B tier, Rachmaninoff, Mozart. C tier, Wagner and Ravel. Did you ever imagine seeing them together? And then we have D, Debussy, Johann Strauss II, and Sibelius. I'm sad for Sibelius. Maybe I should have added him a little bit higher there. This is obviously not about which composer is better. As I said, this is about for war, use case for war. Now, my recommendation is to take some of these works that we've discussed here, download them into a playlist. I would recommend as I've said, first recommendation will be Mahler's 6th Symphony. It is amazing for war. Carmina Burana is also great for war. Verdi's Dies Irae from the Requiem is fantastic for war. But again, all of these composers have great symphonies for war, works for war. Do check them out and be safe. That's also important. But if you're not safe, at least you will go with a great work of music. Isn't that better than going with hearing the siren or hearing the news or hearing the screams of hysteria? I think it's much better. So if you go, you should go with beauty, you should go with a blast. And if you don't, at least you spend this time with great art. I think is a very good way to go about life and to go about death. So enjoy and take care.